everyone, and thanks for joining me for another episode. My next guest is a cybersecurity expert, and he's an entrepreneur. He has his hands in so many different things, including creating his own social media network. This conversation is great. I have high respects for my next guest because he's a Stoic at heart. He's an entrepreneur like I am, and he loves technology. And I'm always fascinated by cybersecurity and what we can do to stop this. I introduce to you guys the very forward-thinking Nikolas Kraljevic. All right, Nikolas. Hey, thanks for joining the show, brother. I appreciate you for not only accepting the invite, but actually, I know after the holidays it's really busy to fit in things like this, man. So I appreciate your time.
No, thank you so much. It's great to be here and really looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, so, I'm going to get right into the general cybersecurity, which is what you specialize in, and then we could just break down from there because I know this is a very wide discussion, and I'm actually super excited to have you here to have this discussion. So please tell the people a little bit about yourself and what it is you do.
Hey, awesome. Happy to. My name's Nick. I've been in cybersecurity probably since, let me think now, I probably started studying cybersecurity in 2009 and probably worked in the field ever since. And I've worked in kind of a range of fields. Cybersecurity, even though it's quite a hot topic now, it's really like a very broad field. So it's if somebody says they're a doctor, it's like there's a specific type of doctor, or there could be a specialist sort of thing. So cybersecurity is just like that. My day job, I work for an Australian an insurance company. As a cybersecurity manager there, and also have a couple of startups that are at various levels of cybersecurity focus.
Okay, now do you actually? This is, if I'm not mistaken, data breaches are ever evolving, right? So it's sort of one of those things where you have to, you stop them and then they find another way and you stop. So do you actually write the code that stops this stuff, or do you just enforce that this stuff is working?
It's in my day job. It's more like an enforced thing, and I think that would probably be similar for most people doing cybersecurity, unless you're really working at somewhere that's building a product or a solution. There's not much actual coding to go on, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. So I think if an average organization, they'll have teams kind of defending an organization, and it's more looking at logs, checking events, making sure things haven't been tampered with. We're getting to kind of an interesting place. Sorry to digress so much, but we're getting to an interesting place where a lot of organizations kind of will do the same activity. So we're seeing some cool companies pop up, which essentially will kind of write code and make software for that specific thing, and then industry kind of jumps on and adopts it. So.
Gotcha. Okay. And what's the current state of cybersecurity in the world? Because like you said a little while ago, it is a hot topic nowadays. And at least here in America, I mean, with everything that's going on with, possible hacks from, Russia and different places and et cetera, what is the state of cybersecurity? Is it at its worst, or are you more of an optimistic that says, hey, because these things are happening, we get stronger and we get better?
Yeah, it's kind of never been better in a sense in terms of what we can do and the tools and stuff, what we can achieve. But then, the attacks are getting worse and worse. I saw somebody the other day actually broke in and hacked FireEye, which was like this super cool organization, really cutting edge cybersecurity, developing tools and kind of have a really strong consulting practice. And they got broken into. So, it's very weird that we're in this extreme kind of state where things are awesome, but as things get more awesome, the attackers are also thinking outside the box and getting probably more brazen, or at least we're maybe catching them sooner, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's that good old-fashioned comparison of, the criminals just keep getting smarter and they keep getting better. And every type of crime, it seems like, but definitely in cybersecurity. So what do you know about, and this is immediately right off the bat, do you know the company Ledger, which is a hard wallet company? And did you hear about their latest breach of over, I think it was like 290 million emails?
Yeah, so I heard Ledger. I've actually got one lying around in my drawer somewhere. I did hear they have been breached. And I heard there's some of the customers are quite angry. So we'll see what that if that plays out maybe in the courts or something as well.
Did you hear? And yeah, I did hear about class action lawsuits. But did you know any information on how they got breached, like, or how what type of systems did they use to even try to block anybody getting access to this information? Do you know anything about that situation?
Not so much on the Ledger case, but I heard it was quite a trivial. It was supposed to be quite a trivial hack or a simple mistake, I guess.
Gotcha. So, all right. So then let's just go general and not put a name on a company. What does a typical, breach look like? Like, what does it take for somebody to actually be able to hack into a database, for say?
Yeah, so typically a lot of breaches we see start with kind of phishing attacks, and phishing
Okay.
essentially is sending fake, legitimate looking emails. So somebody will enter their username and password. So if somebody kind of sets up a phishing scam and somebody puts in their password and then hey, this guy works, he can get in, then they kind of start looking around. There's also the other thing which we've probably seen in the last few days with solar winds and stuff like that, where there's an actual vulnerability in the product, so somebody can kind of hack in through the product and get in that way.
I see. Okay.
Um, but I think most things you'll either see start with kind of a phishing attempt, or somebody who's inside the organization is not kind of happy and decides to do something a little bit naughty. But essentially, once someone's in the organization, then they kind of start looking around to see if they can move laterally, so that in terms of move to other servers on the network or other PCs or get into other systems. Um, so once that kind of happens, they'll kind of use one set of creds to get in. They might use another. They might set up another phishing scheme, or look for something else, or look for some vulnerabilities to get elsewhere. Because as an attacker, the best thing to get is somebody's admin creds. So if you can phish a system administrator, great. They'll likely have access to a whole bunch of stuff on the network, so you can kind of move around without much interference. But if you kind of get a lower level employee, it'll pretty much just kind of trade that account to get a kind of foothold or a stepping stone inside a network, and start looking around to get elsewhere. Um, I think a lot though of attacks are kind of there's a fraud element. So if you can get some low level creds, it's probably really good to just kind of get that and try get someone's bank details or something like that. But
Yeah.
typically, what we kind of see is there's the kind of the pray and spray type operators, where let's just try and get out to fish as many people as possible and get in. And then you've got these like sophisticated hacking groups. Some may or may not work for nation states, where they're kind of really interested into getting into a system, maybe stealing some IP or sabotaging a competitor. Um, I read a really great book recently called Stealth War, and by a guy, I forgot his name, but he was actually a general working for the United States cybersecurity area, and he was kind of explaining how some foreign actors will get into a company that has a IP or something that they really want, and then kind of essentially try to steal that IP. If that doesn't work, maybe try sabotage the company so their sales go down, and then you can maybe buy the company later for like a small price of what it would have traded before they kind of got in there and wrecked things.
Yeah. That's interesting. So now, what can you do to fight against all that? Because everything that you just laid out there seems hard to nail down. So on the security end, what is it that could be done to stop these guys,
Yeah,
if
I think
if anything?
yeah, I like the kind of the things that will fix, I think, or help stop most attacks is I think one is you have to kind of educate your people and make sure you're kind of educated as a user. So be suspicious. Look at what's happening. Look at check emails if they look suspicious. Don't click on them. Always check if from the sender if you can. So being educated, being a bit skeptical,
Sure.
being educated, and then I guess also a lot of make sure you turn on multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication on everything. because if somebody kind of can get your account or your password, they still kind of need your little token or your authenticator code to get in.
Okay.
And that is really, there's no silver bullet, but that will kind of fix most things. And typically you'll kind of see as well in the past where, somebody will will hack the CEO's account. Often it kind of fails because multi-factor is set up. So it just becomes a case of, okay, let's just change the password and have a quick look and everything's okay. So happy days.
Yeah, they have to get through more layers basically to get to the source.
Yeah, pretty
That's
much. You kind of just want to make it, put as much disincentive as you can without making it difficult for users to kind of do their job or use the service, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I'm familiar with that in the sense that a few of my financial accounts have like the Google Authenticator, that type of thing, and I have the cell phone messages. Now, I've heard this story. Now, is it possible for them, meaning the hacker, to be able to get the information sent to their phone instead of your phone? I've heard things of like SIM hacks.
Yeah,
Is that realistic?
yeah, absolutely. And that was really, really common probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
I'm currently in Sydney, and after seeing that at some banks, some of my previous supervisors essentially kind of lobbied the telco providers to put in a delay when you change phone number and some extra safeguards, so it'd be hard. But yeah, what is really common is they'll kind of call your cell phone provider pretending to be you. Say you're changing phones or numbers or SIM cards, or they'll even clone your SIM. So when that message, set multi-factor or phone message comes through, they essentially
Yep.
see that on their phone and they can use it. So I kind of recommend, if you have the choice, use something like Google Authenticator or one of those apps, or a hardware key like a YubiKey. So I think Google as well is providing these little hardware dongles essentially to all their employees, and it's literally you just plug it into your USB port and kind of tap it as it flashes. It works with most things now.
Okay.
If probably I try to stay away from using the phone number. I try to use the Authenticator app, but my favorite is to have the hardware key because there's only one. I have it on me at all times, and it keeps it super safe.
Gotcha. Okay, so now let's move away from the day job and stuff. I actually, you have a password manager app out. By the way, I looked at a bunch of your apps. Congratulations on having so many apps. I used to code for a little while, Android apps, and I never was able to publish anything. And you've actually been able to publish a few that I actually want to get into in a little bit. But how do you handle security for, say, something like a password manager app?
Yeah, no, thank you. First up, it's my passion. I love releasing these things, so it's good. But when coding a password manager, essentially, um, typically when you want to kind of do login to websites, you won't store any. If you're hosting something, let's say like a Gmail or something, you've created a similar app. You don't want to actually ever hold or see what those passwords are. You want to kind of store a hash,
Yep.
which is like essentially you put some text through, and there's an algorithm that'll kind of transform that text into like a garbage value that looks like garbage or gibberish. But it's pretty much the way it's set up is it's whatever input you put in, it'll always put out with the same input, the same output. So um, that's kind of for websites. For when you're actually holding credentials, it's actually it's very different. You actually need to see what that original password is if the users want to allow them to kind of copy paste that password,
Right.
or do things. So what you essentially kind of have to do is you want to have multiple levels of encryption. So for my particular app, we kind of encrypt the whole app and the password and everything by itself as part of builds. So even if somebody gets a copy of the app on their phone, it's kind of hard um, to decrypt that and see what's inside the app. So that's kind of one level of protection. And then the other level of protection as well is we kind of, when you set up the app, it gives you an encryption key and a string. So that will kind of, that gets applied to all the passwords and all the sensitive stuff in the app. So when you store a password, it runs that encryption over that record. And then it's stored in that encrypted fashion. So if you ever got to look at this database in plain text, everything would just look like gibberish. And then when you kind of pull up that password from the app, then it, decrypts it one by one, and then you can kind of see the original value. It's I
Now,
also just kind
is
of
that on the API level?
yeah, that's in the code on the API level. For
Okay.
stuff, I try to just stick to the encryption kind of algorithms provided with the device and with the
Okay.
software. You don't want to kind of a lot of people, especially early stage, and I'm guilty of this too. When you're starting, you want to kind of develop your own encryption algorithms.
Okay.
The ones we kind of roll up and make ourselves or see on Google, or in Stack Overflow, sorry, are not that great. So you always want to kind of use something like AES or RSA, algorithms
Something
like that.
proven.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
think.
use it like a proper safe implementation. Because if there's a much higher chance of me by myself going coding something, making errors that will allow somebody to dump the whole database than something proven that's been worked on by a lot of people and been independently certified.
Yeah, that's a big responsibility for sure. Now, do you just do the Android app, or I mean, the Apple app, or do you have Android app?
Yes, I've just done the Apple app for now. I'm
Okay.
actually taken a while, a lot longer than I would like to actually get the Android version ready.
No,
But
lost you there for a
it's on
second,
the
brother.
way. It's coming soon.
I'm gonna start recording. By the way, I this is the second time Zencaster has failed me.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
Do you want me to just exit the Zencaster?
yeah, you should exit the Zencaster. The reason I enjoy Zencaster is because they give me your raw file and my raw file, and that really helps me in the post edit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And Zoom is just one bunched up, and I kind of have to roll with whatever we got, right? But at the end of the day, man, it's more stable. I apologize.
No
Uh,
problems. No problems at all.
let's just call that a warm up. But it's nice to see you. It's nice to meet you.
Good to
Uh,
see you.
I'm recording. It says, okay, cool. All right. So we were just talking about a bunch of different things, but you're cybersecurity expert. You do it for a day job. You're also an entrepreneur, just to catch everybody up. And we were talking about your password manager app, and you were talking about using the encryption on the API level. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, really cool. Now, you were talking about hash, and I'm actually lately since October or so, I've been interested in Bitcoin, and I know a big piece of Bitcoin is hashing. Is hashing the same thing as encryption, or are those two different things?
Yeah, so the best way to kind of explain hashing is it's a one-way encryption.
Okay.
So it's like an encrypt, but you can't decrypt.
Okay.
So yeah, hashing very similar to encryption, but pretty much what you'll kind of do is with encryption you can kind of decrypt, so you can get something that looks like a hash value and then get that original value back. A hash is just one way, so it's more of a you don't necessarily need to decrypt it back from the result. So that's why it works great for authentication and login. So you can you don't need to actually store that password, but you can prove, yep, that's the correct value or that's the same value,
Okay.
without you having then to kind of hold on to some detail that if leaked could be a big issue for everyone.
Okay. And so that's important to anything security related.
Yeah, so it allows us to kind of essentially trust each other without us both having to have a key, or we can kind of verify or show that values are good. So blockchain and stuff like that is all kind of built on the hash by proving, yep, okay, this happened, and we can say definitely it happened because the hash value is the same, type of thing.
Okay, so that's your password manager app. I also saw that you have a Stoicism app. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. Sorry. Yes.
Oh
Yep.
yeah. So I'm a huge fan of the Stoics. So this one stuck out to me like a sore thumb. Was there, do you enjoy Stoic philosophy? Was there a motive behind this app, or was it just something you were playing around with? What's the reason behind that app?
Yeah, absolutely love Stoic philosophy. Kind of stumbled on it a couple of years ago, and just blown away, amazed at how awesome it is. I think it's also, if anyone who's a little bit entrepreneurial will kind of really love it or get lots out of it. So yeah, it was just a little kind of like a thank you or a dedication to Stoicism, I think, for helping so much, because I think if I look at my own kind of life trajectory and career and entrepreneurial stuff, as the writings these guys wrote down, most of them thousands of years ago, just helped me get through so much, I guess, in life.
Yeah.
I'm
Now,
sure
do you
you.
have a favorite Stoic?
Yeah, I think kind of the Marcus Aurelius
Yeah,
Meditations is great. Um,
absolutely.
Epictetus I also love because he's a little bit more raw,
Yeah.
whereas Marcus Aurelius is kind of well put together and polished. Epictetus is really kind of in your face.
Gritty. Yeah.
Yeah, it just
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
um,
Marcus Aurelius is great. Seneca, obviously, I think is one of my favorites. Lately, I've been inspired at how much Seneca actually got done in his life, like how much he actually wrote when it came to playwrights, and when it came to, obviously the letters to Lucilius and everything that he's ever done while being high up in the ranks of government, right? In that time, and still trying to live a virtuous life with all the stuff that's going on. He had so much power that he could have abused, and one would argue that he did abuse or turn a blind eye. But I'm really intrigued with Seneca lately. Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely, and
Yeah.
it's just to see the wide range of characters from like the beginning of Stoicism to even, let's say, modern day or recent history, and it's been so varied, rich, poor, all have been super fascinating, done interesting things. So yeah, I can definitely
Yeah.
attest to amazing. Everyone who kind of deep dives into it a little bit as well pretty much comes with a similar reaction to wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, and you mentioned for an entrepreneur, especially, I one of my favorite lines is Tim Ferriss actually saying that Stoicism is an operating system for high stakes living. I probably butchered that, but it was something along that line where it's like, the operating system makes perfect sense because it's not a religion. It's not like a cultish thing. It's more of a, hey, these were average guys that were able to ask themselves big questions and theorize big answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
um and it's probably today probably an unpopular answer, I think, in a lot of things, because a lot of the key message I try to take from it is don't complain, just keep trying, don't worry so much about what else is going on. um so yeah, it's definitely it's yeah, I agree with, and I think Tim Ferriss as well is it's kind of been one of the big popularizers of all the kind of the modern Stoic movement, I guess, if you
Yeah.
could call it that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm part of that wave. I got put on by Ryan Holiday, and the obstacle is the way, which I would agree with you. It's not early to the party, but it's part of the wave. But it's been huge. It's been a life changer, especially when you navigate off of those authors and actually go dig into the text. Right, like you mentioned, meditations. I walk around in my backpack with meditations every single day. I also have here, and I have a stack of books behind me you can't see, but I have Seneca on the shortness of life. I have a few other books that are basically saying here. And, I told my wife the other day, because I read a little bit every morning, a little bit of meditations, and then I read the daily Stoic of the day. And I told my wife, is like, it doesn't really seem to matter what problem I have or what anxiety I have or what I seem to just open the book and find one thing that's like, boom, like that's exactly what I needed to start my day, move my day, get out of this, obstacle. I don't. Does that happen to you where you have these eureka moments with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the first reads, and I think my introduction was "Obstacle is the Way" as well.
Yeah.
Same thing. I remember being on a flight and listening to it on, I think, Audible.
Yeah.
And by the time I landed, it completely it was like it changed my life. Just the whole perspective. And yeah, same thing. I think because the core message is so clear and so great. You always find something valuable, and it's kind of very quotable.
Yeah.
So if you're kind of familiar with Stoics, I'm not sure if you heard of Nassim Taleb as well.
Not as much, but I am aware of Nassim Taleb.
Yeah, he one of his kind of lines is, and so a lot of his books as well. If you haven't seen them, I highly recommend to check it out. It's kind of there's a lot of similarity with Stoicism, but he kind of
Okay.
says, for let's say we've got a handful of books left from that time thousands of years ago, particularly the Stoic ones, right? And there's so many endlessly quotable lines or bits of insight. And today there's, so many books published, on a day level, more than, probably for hundreds of years. And a lot of them are forgettable. So it really speaks to that kind of core message in all those texts and works, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I recommend anybody listening. I mean, if they listen to this podcast, I'm sure they know enough. I actually had a few guests ago. I had Michael Tremblay, and he's a PhD candidate in Stoic philosophy, or in philosophy in general. But he specializes in Stoic philosophy, and we had a great conversation when it comes to Stoicism, and when it comes to sports, and when it comes to having this. This mentality that you have to wrestle with life, right? Like you're kind of like beating it up and bear boxing it. And it was a great conversation, but Stoicism never seems to amaze me. I'm glad you're a fellow Stoic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I find it's actually quite common with a lot of entrepreneurs and people, doing podcasting, side hustling and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it's definitely anyone who kind of knows it is, wow, great.
Yeah. So let's talk about side hustles. So you're very entrepreneur minded. Obviously, we've already discussed 2 of your apps, and we're gonna discuss a few more. That's how I was surprised, by the way, when you sent me all the links. I was like, Nick is everywhere. I was like, Nick has a little bit of everything, and I plan on not only going through most of the stuff, but the Stoic app is definitely a download for me. But so let's talk. So what started you in side hustling? Was it something that you always knew you wanted to do? Was it just one of those days at your day job where you're like, the hell with this? What's your drive, man?
Yeah, I mean, I was always kind of interested, like, even as a kid, in tinkering things and, making little movies and stuff. And, I'm generally someone who I kind of every now and then find something, a subject, and kind of go down a bit of a rabbit hole and try to learn everything there is to know about it and stuff. So, but essentially, I think for me, a lot of that kind of stuff started where I was, you kind of, I think somebody I used to work with said it best is you kind of need your little side projects to remain sane, or to, your passion projects, so you can,
I like that.
to do that. So yeah, that essentially is kind of how it started for me, just making sure just wanted to make sure, that I didn't lose skills that I'd learned, and wanted to kind of hang on and acquire more stuff. So then kind of just, you start on your weekends or your free time. And you just kind of, it just feels really good to kind of see these little passion projects start and grow and kind of get somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And build some momentum.
Super. Yeah, build some momentum. And then it seems really hard, and it seems, like really huge at the start. But after you've kind of done a few of these, it kind of gets a little bit easier, because that kind of rhythm and getting into starting things and doing it just becomes easier. So for me, it's kind of just started as a, to hang on to skills, but it's also kind of insurance in a way, if particularly this year, and who knows, it's kind of still raging on, but with all the pandemic and stuff, who knows what's really going to happen. So you kind of want to have something else in your back pocket, if you kind of lose your job tomorrow, or something happens, you can't work, or whatever, it just kind of, to me, just kind of always makes more sense to have a couple options for everything. So it's just kind of and it's just evolved now to where it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you say that it's a way to re-keep skills and not lose them. I just found that, in my experience, boy, us humans are crazy when we just have too much spare time. Like, it's a way to stay distracted for me. It's the way to, I keep learning, keep growing. But I find that the most times I've ever gotten myself in trouble, or the most times that I've ever been miserable or been to a point, is when I just do nothing. When I'm not learning anything, when I'm not trying to. Yeah. So to me, it's to stop from procrastinating. I have to keep moving or keep doing something, because I'm going to just end up being miserable, is what it seems like. And getting work done, like you said, getting good work and efficient work done, it's just gratifying, and it kind of keeps you away from the muck, is what I'm trying to say.
Agree 100%. I mean, we kind of live in the best time. I always tell people, where if you want to learn something or do something, start a business, you can literally just sit at your desk, or even in bed, go on the internet, figure out how to do something, learn something, and do it. Or you can, watch Netflix for 24 hours in the day. So I don't know about you, but I'm noticing in my kind of networks this weird thing where some people are, the more entrepreneurial minded guys are going out and launching more things, and the others are kind of just spending more and more time, Netflix and that kind of stuff, which or even gaming and stuff. And for me, I just feel super I feel like I've wasted a day if I spend the whole thing watching Netflix or gaming or something like that. So it's
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
And I'm
I think from what you've said, it kind of feels the same.
yeah, and I'm surprised at people's response to actually starting a business. Like about a year ago or so, I built this whole premise of the $300 startup, right? And it's like, look, the internet has leveled the playing field. You can literally start a business, like you said, right from your home, right? You don't need, just get your hobbies and put it out there. And it was successful and it did really good, but I wish it did more, because I still think the friction people think is, that old school mentality, which is like, no, I need to know somebody. I need capital. I need a lot of money to start. I need, all these reasonings and all these excuses. And you're right. Those people end up usually being the ones that are watching Netflix the majority of the time. But I wish people understood how easy it is to
I
start
mean,
a business or something nowadays.
yeah, I agree. And not to detract if anyone listening, likes to listen to Netflix, there's nothing wrong for that too. There's a
Oh, I'm married. I
time and
definitely
place
get
you
my
kind of
Netflix
need to.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watch my shows. I do my Netflix, but it's very important to be aware of how much you're doing the Netflixing, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for me, I guess these side hustles and things, they kind of give back either to you or to someone else, I guess, is the good thing. So if you think about it, if you kind of exchange, let's say, 10 hours of your time to make something,
Yeah.
and that when that thing's made, you can go and reuse it. So then it's kind of giving back, or you can sell it or something. Or if it's like it's an app, you can sell it multiple times. So it's always it just kind of, it's like I guess it's like investing your time somehow, and then seeing
Sure.
returns come back later on in terms of stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and being in my situation, and that being able to educate people and the gratification that comes with that, which is like you said, you're putting your value into the world, right? And somebody's actually picking it up, and you get rewarded for it, you get paid for it, but the gratification of seeing them actually implement it, it's
Yeah,
top
exactly. When
notch.
you can see that light bulb like tick on in their head where they've worked something out or they can do something, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, man. So let's go back to the entrepreneur. So you're making apps. Now you're working on something that when I saw that you were working on, I was like, wow, how is he handling this? So you've built a social media app. Can you explain the social media app?
Yeah, so as everyone can kind of tell you that social media is a some people might say toxic place, and depending on which one you're on, and addictive and those kinds of things. So
Yeah.
essentially, I kind of built my own one to as pretty much as with a specific goal, because my kind of all this stuff is Facebook will probably fold, within the mid, Twitter, not sure yet. YouTube, I think will still be around. YouTube, I love it, great product, but I don't think it makes really any money at all. So some
No.
of these really fascinating services, and same thing probably with a lot of the big name startups as well. They're in this weird kind of bucket where they're just kind of burning through cash, and unless they find a way for people to pay for this, it's they might not be around in the near future.
Yeah.
So essentially, I kind of built one just for pretty much what I really wanted to do is kind of my heritage is Croatian, from Croatia. So I'd like to also start up some businesses there and go back one day and kind of live there. And it's kind of booming now as a location. Recently, they've kind of made some visa changes to make it more enticing to digital nomads. So if anyone's kind of familiar with it, where they kind of film Game of Thrones, all those old locations, castles, beaches, etc., is Croatia. So it's a really beautiful place. So it's become super popular for people to kind of put all their stuff and grab a laptop and go work from. So I was kind of just interested for years, pretty much figuring out, how to do things, get involved. Because even if you're interested in share trading, you can kind of trade shares there, and you don't have to be a citizen.
Wow.
And stuff like that. But it was just so hard to find information or connect people.
Yeah.
So I had Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, all these things. I think maybe if these other things fold, here's my kind of opportunity. I'm going to put this out there, see what happens. And kind of, so it's kind of set up as kind of really similar to Facebook or Reddit. I kind of say it's halfway in between, and probably Twitter as well.
Okay, so you targeted just that area Croatia, or is this global?
Kind of the.
Oh, sorry. We're getting some lag there.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's weird because it's Croatian themed or focuses, but it's it's global. There's a huge kind of community of Croatian if they want to kind of start businesses or go back, etc. So it's really about kind of linking us all up together, and so we can kind of stay in touch, communicate, and kind of get some projects going together, I guess, because I haven't got enough projects already.
Yeah. Now, what are the complexities of a social media app? Like, how much responsibility do you have to handle? Coming with a cybersecurity background, I know security is a big thing. What are the complexities of that?
Yeah, so it is like of having another full-time job almost in some sense, just content moderation and stuff. People do really weird things with social media apps, whether uploading, people will be having a casual conversation and somebody just dropping naked photos and stuff like that. So there's that side which is not so fun, which is trying to moderate all that stuff. But kind of working on the coding and stuff is I do enjoy and doing that. So recently we kind of set up a news feature. So we're kind of pulling in all the major news from a whole bunch of sources and around Croatia on the site. So getting that ready and kind of next we want to get some sports stuff like live sports scores happening, which is probably a year late to get that sports score stuff happening. But since most sports were kind of cancelled or stopped for a big portion of this year, it's kind of worked out okay for now, I guess.
Yeah, you won't need it.
It is very time consuming. The hardest thing is that content moderation. People
are you doing that by yourself?
Do strange things. I have a team that helps, okay, cool. So a couple of people that help, but sometimes you something happens and some things are on there, you kind of get asked for your input or what you should do. So sometimes you're like, oh, geez.
Yeah. That's an interesting topic that I've wondered myself. So when it comes to moderation, you hear these stories of Twitter canceling people or, Facebook blocking certain things. So what's the fine line between being able to moderate properly, in your opinion?
Yeah, I guess it's a weird. We kind of it's kind of a really murky position. I think particularly I'll talk about probably United States where you are, because that's that's kind of set the scene for what happens everywhere, I guess.
Yeah.
But essentially, you've got a whole bunch of people who are private companies. And they've put out platforms and they're kind of deciding what people can and can't see,
right.
Which is fine. I think if you're a private company and you want to do that, that's fine. But then they've also got protections from these kind of things. So they're kind of getting a whole bunch of upsides, but without any downsides, I guess. Because if say if I run something and I decide to ban everyone or block anyone on my social network, they'll just move to another one basically who's kind of friendlier to them or doesn't want to block or ban stuff.
Okay.
But I think, I don't know, I'm looking at just coming back to earlier to our Stoicism stuff. There's a lot of stuff that blocking and banning is about, really hurt feelings, or you don't want other people's feelings to get hurt, therefore you're going to block and ban it. But the kind of Stoicism says, you can only, it's only going to impact you if you let it impact you, or affect you if you let it affect you.
Absolutely.
So I think kind of personally the best solution is, I think, we kind of need to be more resilient. So I don't know if that's whether we teach people in school or one attitude or whatever to kind of ignore this stuff, because if it's just about hurt feelings and stuff, and it's like, I mean, it's not nice, but there's other things we can do, right, that I think that will pay off and help everyone more in the long run. So let's do those instead of focusing. But there is stuff, there is people doing shootings and horrible stuff that but yeah, it's just a really murky position at the moment. So I guess, and I think particularly everything going on with in the last year or so, hopefully there'll be some clarity. Is it going to be a good solution? I don't know. Here in Australia, actually, there was just legislation kind of just released for public comment, which will allow our government to essentially, if you report something on Facebook or something, let's say, and it doesn't get taken down, then you can kind of petition the government to take it down. So it's just, for me, my grandparents kind of fled to come to Australia from a communist place. It wasn't really nice, and it kind of just feels like if we're not careful, we might kind of create a similar environment here in these countries that were so great, and people kind of left from initially to get away from this stuff to see it come here. So that's my kind of big fear, I guess.
Yeah, that's so. I think it's so scary, especially in the year of COVID and everything that's going on, how eerily similar that sounds to here in America. It sounds the same exact way. It's just like, wait a minute, when did this become, for the people, and when does it become not for the people? It's very strange. My problem with the moderation is that, yes, we should be able to shield certain things and moderate certain things, but the problem is that nowadays sometimes that blocks the truth. And when you're not able to see the truth, it becomes very dangerous when an organization, whether private or not, can actually say, no, this is not going to be shown. And I think the people are having a hard time finding the truth.
Absolutely. When you can see everyone has their own particular angle and bent, on some of these contentious subjects, like, elections and vaccines and stuff like that. It's just, if everyone will kind of, whatever side you're on, if you kind of block something, then it's instantly becomes a contentious issue. And there is a lot of stuff where it's, like I can't name an exact example off my head, but it kind of feels deceptive, I guess. So a lot of people are not happy with that, with the terms of, these guys have kind of approved and made themselves the kind of voice, or the official voice. So yeah, definitely you can feel that, understand that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange. I'm having this weird thing where I work at a hospital currently, and I work in the operating room. And what I keep saying over and over again, and some people have told me why this is selfish, but I still can't help but feel this. They keep telling me that there is a disaster happening that I can't seem to see with my eyes. Once again, very selfish. I know there are people suffering. I know there are different situations out there that are not as good as mine, and I'm not trying to overlook that because that would be wrong. But yeah, it seems like the fabrication of the stories is being leveraged to thrust certain powers and certain things going on, and I'm very weirded out. And it in a way, it sounds satisfying that this is something that's happening across seas, right? It's a similar thing with this. How's COVID for you guys? Can you dig a little bit into that for Australia over there?
Yeah. So for us, we kind of, in New South Wales, we had a couple cases. So we're in lockdown for Christmas. You could only have like maximum 10 guests. So if you're like me and you have a large extended family, you couldn't see everyone on Christmas. No. So yeah, case numbers have always been pretty low. I think we're somewhere, around 20 or 30 cases, but there's no real international flights unless of emergency. So, for myself, I had a whole bunch of trips planned this year, go for business, and that's all kind of being cancelled. So I don't know when flights are going to open up again. So for the time being, I'm pretty stuck here. And yeah, numbers have been low. People freak out about toilet paper and stuff. And toilet paper were kind of sold out in all the supermarkets. It's right there is kind of I think a good microcosm of the whole the panic and the censorship and that kind of debate where there's just so much panic in the air right now that when stuff happens, or it might not be fair to say, but some of it might not be unfounded, because particularly in Australia with low case numbers, literally talking hundreds, where other countries are having thousands a day with much smaller population.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, but there's a constant panic everywhere. So it's I'm not a big fan of the constant the panic, and that's kind of being driven by let's say media It's for me. Just let's be realistic about it, right? It's a good story, I guess, that we only have 30 cases. So
Incredibly good. I think I'm in Massachusetts here in the United States, and I believe we just had probably like 3,000 or 4,000 in a day or something like that. Some crazy number like that. So it's
I don't think we ever had that.
Yeah, and we're doing the similar thing. We have 10 people locked down. It's just very weird. I go. I don't know. There's something about the stores being completely packed, but I can't do basic stuff that seems very weird to me. Like I said, I work at a hospital, and they keep sending us these internal emails that say, the hospital's packed, and there's all that. And I do believe that the hospital's packed, but I to call it a pandemic, I don't see it. It's the problem, and maybe that's selfish for me to say. I don't know, but yeah, I agree with you. It seems to be very weird. 30 cases though, that's extremely hard for you guys to have have such tight lockdowns. That's so weird.
So we're kind of still luckier that Victoria, the state south of us, which Melbourne Melbourne's in Victoria, for anyone kind of not familiar with Aussie geography. They were kind of trapped in their home for months. Basically, they could only go out for an hour a day and stuff. Just really, really strict, rules for when it seems like when you just have to go to kind of look at another country internationally and go, wow, those cases are super huge. For me, it feels like, I agree with you, same boat. It feels like the reaction is a lot more severe. And I think it's probably just part of it is whoever's makes rules in, these departments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're just kind of setting out rules with the best intentions, but they're not balanced, where you've got weird things where you can't go, you can get haircuts, but you can't do other things, etc.
Yeah.
We probably just need to take a step back, apply some common sense. If you're worried or you're at risk, just try to stay home and self-isolate, or, wear a mask when you go out or something like that. But it just seems like we're just going to ban everything, and you can't go have a nice meal at a restaurant if you've got, a party of 11 people or something like that. It's just, I agree with you 100%. Feel your pain.
Very strange. Now, we started this whole tangent on it because of social media. Let's circle back to that. How much of it do you think has to do with social media? The problem.
I think a big part, media and social media. I think social media essentially now is, or you could say Silicon Valley is pretty much is part of the media. They're kind of one entity. It kind of sounds weird when you say that, because you're talking about like things, let's say Uber and stuff like that, but they essentially are kind of filling in the same role that mass media kind of has for the last, let's say 50 years. So my kind of theory on what's happening is, as that, typically, in my parents' time and grandparents' time and in yours too, they kind of were used to, just one voice on the radio or the TV, giving them a nice succinct summary of this is what happened. In terms of communication and all the different channels and stuff was, in sync with that. It made sense. It helped people. Now I kind of think the world's kind of becoming a lot more chaotic. There's so much more communication. You can pick up the phone and chat to somebody in some country you never heard of, with literally a super quick amount of time. I didn't have to write a letter or anything and have a hard think about what I had to say before I sent it.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
So it's just become more. It's just. I think it's just kind of exacerbating some of this stuff. Because if you think about how people communicated and how they consume stuff a long time ago, it was a lot more like a long form content, or you had to really kind of think what you were going to say through and get that position down before you kind of sent a letter or something, or even chat on the phone, because it was expensive. Now it's basically free if you're on WhatsApp or something, or Viber. So it's just it's become super cheap to communicate, I guess. So when it's super cheap, we can kind of say anything, and we're not careful that we're using all the paper or thinking through and saying the important things. You can just say whatever you want when it comes to your mind, particularly with stuff like Twitter, where people are just literally, as soon as the thought comes in their head, they're typing it out.
Yeah, extremely dangerous.
So and we're kind of living with the consequences of all that now. Yeah. So it's created the kind of situation we have today.
Yeah, I just don't think we're able to handle that. I don't think we've evolved to handle that. And you're right with the example with our parents and stuff. We're hearing it 150 times from 150 different opinions from 150 people that have really good information. Because if you want to look for your own truth, you can dig far enough to find it eventually. So it's very complex in that situation where I don't think it's good for people. And kudos to you for trying a social media app, but are you doing anything to address those type of things? Like getting out of hand, or you just giving people open platform?
Uh, yeah, I think slowly we're just do. My kind of core goal was to foster more kind of good interactions with people. So and make it more sort of about projects. So we're kind of big on supporting anyone who's doing crowdfunding projects. If they're doing like a Kickstarter or something, share that and get that out there, or donations. So we actually do a lot of stuff where where there's been sick kids and stuff, particularly over Christmas, and families. So we're kind of trying to push those and get members to donate to those. And then also the other thing is we're kind of got and what's we're kind of doing unique is we kind of try to, if there's scams we find out, or even fake accounts, we try to let users know about that in the network straight away. Because I think my average user base is probably somewhere around the 45 to 55 mark, I think, for a lot of people.
Okay.
And I think they're probably just not as used to social media as some younger audiences. So we want to make sure that they don't get trapped into any schemes, because there's a kind of daily occurrence of accounts of scammers from Nigeria signing up and with either a hot girl photo or a guy photo saying they're just looking for someone to love them, please send money. So it's the stuff like that we're trying to do, and just kind of coming back to earlier when we were talking about cybersecurity on education is kind of the best thing you can do.
Okay, and how are you guys handling security? Is it that you have the 2-factor or anything like that, or?
Yeah, so we're not taking any phones like Facebook or Twitter.
Okay.
I don't want to take phone numbers because it's just and do that stuff. It's pretty. We're kind of working on getting some. We've got some good authentication set up. We're kind of trying to get multi-factor up and running. So that's kind of taken a while, but we're there, and we've got a super responsive, user support or customer support. So that's kind of, I think, playing the big part. But we kind of want to move a lot more to, some more core features that like multi-factor auth and stuff like that help users, and even doing like a key when you set up like if you've lost your encryption key, you'll get like some values, and if you type those out and stuff like that. But what I'd like to do, and I think the best things I've seen is it's not Coinbase. I think it's CoinSpot is like an Aussie crypto exchange. So they kind of do some unique stuff where they'll send you some details, and you've got to kind of write stuff on paper and send a video and a code and stuff to kind of authorize certain transactions. So that's really great. I want to do something like that, but that's super manpower intensive. So.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that sounds exciting, man. It seems like you got a lot of work coming towards your way, and it definitely seems like you have the attitude to address it and the background to address it. So you brought up crypto there recently. I guess it would be a perfect time to ask, especially from a security background perspective, what are your thoughts on crypto? What are your thoughts on the blockchain? And what are your thoughts on the security behind that?
Yeah, love it. Big fan, first of all. So I think blockchain as a technology in itself, it's really good, and it's it's kind of a good evolution, let's say, maybe of doing things properly or securely that you can kind of verify. So hopefully it means less fraud, you trusted kind of things. And I think even just as an event log of things what happen, blockchain is fantastic. So we should kind of push everyone as much as possible to kind of adopt this technology. In terms of thoughts on crypto, I think it's probably more secure than than a whole bunch of other methods. But I think online banking is really good now too. But I think it's secure in the sense that everyone's kind of worried, particularly with COVID now, that the amount of kind of in terms of stimulus and bailouts and stuff, what long-term effect that's going to have on the economy. So I think crypto is kind of safe from that at the moment. So I kind of follow a fair bit of investing advice as well, and I think a lot of those guys now are kind of saying the safest places to put your valuable cash right now is going to be gold and crypto. So I kind of see crypto as kind of a digital gold, or as close to a digital gold as we have. Yeah.
Yeah, that we have a little bit like that. Yeah, I'm super glad you brought that up. But absolutely, I've been into I've been following, I guess, some folks on Twitter, and yeah, I see the value point. I tried Bitcoin, and I'm going to speak specifically on Bitcoin because it's the only one I have experience with. I have a little bit of experience with Ethereum, and I tried some Litecoin stuff a few years back. But anyways, 2017, I tried Bitcoin, but I went into it with the wrong mentality. I had no idea what the blockchain was. I had no idea what the technology was. And then what ended up happening was I put some money in. I saw the money plummet. I got the hell out of there fast. That's how I handled 2017. So, come September of this year, just like you nailed it on the head, stimulus, all this talk about this money. I became a homeowner, and I think at least here in America, when you become a homeowner, I think everywhere actually, when you carry on that big loan, you start to realize that this shit is going downhill very fast. So I started to do some digging. I started to do some work, and you're right. It seems to be that the potential of Bitcoin, the transparency of Bitcoin, the scarcity of Bitcoin, if you know anything about currency and money and how humans exchange value, it now seems like a no-brainer to be able to leverage it, right, to be able to use it. And then you like you said, the technology's there, and companies like Cash App are just making it effortless to be crypto owners and to buy and to trade and to do these things. I know there's a bunch of other different credible services, but Cash App is the one to me that's consumer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be, as it gets. I guess the only criticism you can kind of say for now is no one really seems to be doing a lot of purchasing in Bitcoin. I think maybe because I haven't used Cash App. We don't kind of have Cash App here down in Oz, but it's kind of it's just easier to pay with cash or credit card at the moment. Once we can kind of make that happen, it's going to. For crypto, it's going to help it take off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the one fair criticism I've seen is it's meant to kind of be used for purchasing, but there's a lot of people like myself just kind of buying it and holding on to it, hoping it goes really well, and one day you can kind of then flip it for huge profits, I guess. So
yeah, I guess in which is it a hodler is what they call it? That's definitely
the hodlers. Yeah,
that's what I'm aiming for. But to me, it's just I don't know. I just keep because remember I have to sell this to my wife. I'm a married guy now, so what I tell her is that hey, this is pretty much going to be the biggest golden nugget of all time that we can leave to our children, right? If it goes to shit. But yeah, the more I look into it, the more it's like. I don't know, the scarcity aspect of it. Like you can't just keep printing money. It doesn't work that way. And I remember I like to tell the story because it was one of those eureka moments for me. A few years ago during the Barack Obama administration, there was a lot of older folks that were telling me, hey, Social Security is not going to exist for you by the time you get to whatever, 60 years old, retirement. And I didn't understand what that meant. I thought what they were trying to tell me is that the entity itself, Social Security, is not going to exist anymore. But what they were telling me is that what the hell is the point of building all that money to get to that point if that money is worth dirt? You're going to do nothing with that money. And I only just realized that when I became a homeowner. So yeah, Bitcoin is it, man. So all right, you're a hodler. What you know about security? That's your specialty. what are you using to store your Bitcoin? We talked a little bit earlier. I don't know if that was the part that got cut off. We talked about Ledger, and there's a few other reputable companies here. What do you use to hold your Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I've got a little bit floating around a couple of different places. So
Okay.
I kind of recommend everyone. Same with I think to probably what we said earlier. Don't put all your eggs in one basket,
Yeah.
type thing. So I've got a little bit on the exchange, so Coinbase. I've got some on a hardware wallet, which I kind of set up myself, like in 2015 ish, around that time, where
Okay.
I was actually really fortunate. I worked great bank, and I sat next to a guy. He's gone off and he started his own crypto exchange, and he was just an absolute. He was an absolute like libertarian crypto. Like stereotype guy to a T.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
yeah. But awesome dude. Jack, if you're listening, thank you, buddy.
Yeah,
But
nice.
yeah,
Shout
he
out to
was.
Jack.
So he kind of we used to have some. Yeah, shout out to Jack. We had some good chats about crypto while doing our day job stuff.
Yeah.
So I've got a little bit of wallet, a bit on the exchange, and then I've also got some stuff. So you should also set up. So I've got a safe deposit box with with the stuff there, so it's stored. So if somebody, God forbid, breaks into my house, they won't be able to get my crypto wallet because you need to kind of get into the vault and scan your hand and all that stuff. It's like a James Bond movie. It's quite cool.
Oh man. Did you build all this yourself, or is that just a company who makes those type of vaults?
Yeah, no, it's just a company. They just have a safe deposit box type setup.
Super cool, man. You're
So
making
yeah,
my setup seem
they also
terrible.
actually do. Yeah, so yeah, I highly recommend everyone should have a safe deposit box for for all their stuff. Whether it's their grandmother's jewelry or whatever. And yeah, but highly recommend to just have a couple different, I guess, eggs in a couple different baskets. So in case somebody gets one or something happens to one, you've got some other backup stuff. So
Okay, so you've been around the block for a little while. Then this is not new to when it comes to when it comes to Bitcoin.
yeah, I yeah, I did buy a big chunk when it was kind of, let's say, what was it, was 2017, I think, just before it plummeted as well. So I've kind of seen some stuff kind of been in a bit of a plummet and now a return
Yeah,
type
return
phase. So
strong.
yeah, it's not all happy stories. Yeah, it's not all happy stories, but yeah, it's just I guess for thinking about investing stuff, it's not all lost till you kind of pull it out, I guess. So when you decide to take the loss and pull it out and say, yeah, I'm pulling out, that's when you kind of feel it. But if you kind of leave it and all of a sudden it goes up 10,000% tomorrow, then and you pull it out, then that's a win. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm new, I guess, to the whole hodler scenario. So I recently just went with a Ledger. I think it was like a Nano X or something like that. Their latest one. I really
mm,
like the device, and I do understand security, at least when it comes to Bitcoin and these hardware wallets, to the point where it's like, look, just because they stole their emails and stuff like that, you are still good
mm.
as long as you don't give up those 24, key phrases, keyword phrases.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
I understand that aspect of it, but to me, it kind of seems like if you continue to get breached and you claim to be a security company, I might not want to be supporting you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, agree 100%. I think that's part of that. That is one of the drivers why I decided to start my own password manager back in the day, because other ones are kind of storing all your passwords back on the cloud. And you also say, um, if you are, that, you know, see, encrypt all those databases, or sorry, decrypt all those databases and see what's in there. So I think it's just, that was kind of one of the main drivers why I started up in the first place. And yeah, there's a notorious, like, very very bad examples of security companies creating security software, whether it's like firewalls, antivirus, and that itself being terribly insecure. So yeah, I totally recommend. I'm a big fan of don't tell people to do something or give advice if you don't do it. So
Right.
and the same thing goes for companies. If you're a company developing secure products and you're not secure yourself, it's just it's kind of not super trustworthy, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna give my opportunity or my attention to I think it's CoinKite and the Cold Card, whatever it is that they're doing over
Mm.
there. I seem to be enthused with the idea of what they call air gap, where you
Yep.
don't plug in this device to the. Do you know much about that? Do you know what I'm getting into?
Yes. It, air gap is like a cybersecurity technique that's been around since cybersecurity was born.
Okay.
But they do the same thing for sensitive stuff like missile control and nuclear power plants, where you kind of set up a whole bunch of infrastructure and things on your computers or devices or storage or whatever, and just make sure that that is never connected to the internet physically. So there's zero chance of anyone can get in that way. But there's still there's still cases. So if you've ever heard of Stuxnet, it's like the big hacking case where essentially there was an air gapped nuclear facility in Iran, and somehow they kind of got in and kind of put some malware on that system, so the turbines in the plant would spin like a faster than normal and break down, so they couldn't couldn't kind of get that plant working efficiently. So, but yeah, air gap is the best. But there's clever people, I guess, out there every day thinking about how they can bypass the air gap. So you want to kind of look at things as if you're an attacker or a criminal or something, and how you would get into something, and then kind of design or secure stuff in that way, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I just keep hearing that it seems to be the safest bet, but you just convinced me that it's. Is it ever safe? Are you ever secure when it comes to the internet in this world?
Yeah, I kind of tell people never. No, the kind of the first rule of computer security is never buy a computer, and then rule two is if you have to buy a computer, make sure you never turn it on. And so that's the real way to be secure, I guess. But it is it's a real trade off, I guess. So you kind of got to wrestle with. Do you want to trade off all this stuff for having this capability, or do you want to kind of not? So, but there is secure alternatives. I always encourage everyone, if you're worried, if you're getting stuff for free, it means you are the product. So if you're worried, about email or anything, go and find a good secure paid option, because that's the only real way you can kind of be a little bit comfortable that if somebody that they're not selling all your details and your family photos or whatever you've got lying around, and if something bad does happen, that company gets breached, if you've paid them, then you can get together with everyone else and you can then kind of go sue them and say, hey, we're going to sue you guys for kind of doing this badly. But yeah, I kind of live as if everything is not safe. I'm very kind of, you could probably say, paranoid on that kind of level. But yeah, just make sure don't do things. I won't even plug in my phone to charge in public places, because I've heard there's someone's kind of set up these charging stations that when you plug in, there's malware on there and deploys stuff onto your phone or your device. So that's the kind of level of paranoid I'm at. Even if my phone's about to clap out and I'm in the middle of nowhere and I see a free charging station, I won't charge it. It's just
That's good to know. I'm going to avoid that. Next time I'm in the airport, it's gone. Well, who knows when we'll get back to an airport.
I see that airport thing with all the USB ports hanging off, and I have a mini freak out. So
yeah. I bet it's a nightmare to be a security specialist and see everybody doing lousy shit.
Yeah, absolutely. But the common one is, if you're trying to tell people to be secure, they're like, oh yeah, I don't know why anyone would kind of want my stuff. I'm not, a celebrity or anything. And it's just like, well, that's, you still have like money and bank accounts, and you should try to look after all that stuff.
Yeah, that can never happen until it happens. It's one of those things. Yeah. So what do you tell the people that say they won't buy, let's say like the latest iPhone because it scans their face as opposed to scanning their fingerprint?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good it's a trade off, right? Like, I've got an iPhone, I've Face ID. I think it's great. It actually it works great. So definitely awesome thing. But yeah, there is going to be serious concerns pulled up, and depending on where they store that stuff. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is on the device for a lot of stuff. I know they're kind of talking about that for contact tracing as well. So it won't beam out anywhere. So I think if someone can kind of say the best thing, so we have this technology, it does this, and it's stored always on your device. So that's a good position to be in, I guess.
Yeah.
But then, the same people who are kind of saying it's scanning my face, but then they're kind of putting everything they do every 3 seconds on Twitter, or they're, telling everyone where they're going on holiday and stuff. So it's just, they're doing stuff like that, leaving creds everywhere for free stuff, entering competitions. It's like, well, that's, the same, maybe even worse. So,
yeah. It seems we're weird as human beings. We're just strange, but you're absolutely right.
Super strange.
I always tell my wife all the time, she'll tell you this. I tell my kids the same thing. We're just monkeys with big heads. That's all we are. They laugh at it, but I'm being dead serious. Because like you said, I have a few buddies that have told me the same thing. I actually have a coworker at work that tells me the same thing. It's like, you got that thing scanning your face and the government knows, but I don't know if they've ever looked at one of the traffic lights here, at least here in Massachusetts. This camera's all over this thing. I mean, same. They got your face. And like you said, if they can give me the convenience of it making my phone better and my experience better, great. And B, if they can actually just like keep it on the device and not send it and beam it out to anybody, then your argument on holding on to the fingerprint sensor is probably a bad argument.
Yeah, and it happens. You see it a lot with, pretty much almost everything in tech that's a little bit controversial, where everyone's, whether it's particularly coming back to social media, like everyone's censoring me, but then they're like on Facebook all day, or they're silencing my opinion, but then they're posting all the time. It's like, well, if it's that bad, just don't use it. Use something else. Stop it.
Yeah, my sister's big on that. My sister's always the one when I'll tell her new things, Bitcoin being the most of recent. She's always like, oh, but they know so much about me. And but she has an iPhone. She has a Facebook account. She has all these connected entities from the outside coming in, but she's worried about doing a transaction online to buy some Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's very weird to me. It's very strange, but maybe I'm strange. I don't know.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite thing that you're working on now? What is it? You do so many various things. You're a part of so many different things. What's your favorite thing that keeps you motivated nowadays?
Yeah, I guess favorite thing working on is probably the social network. It's the kind of the biggest. But I do really enjoy the password manager and that kind of stuff. Just those are kind of probably two passion projects at the moment. So that's keeps you sane, keeps you happy, whatever, keeps you rewarded. So those are my two. But yeah, in general, kind of just, especially now this time of year, it's good to kind of kick back and at least for us, it's sunny now, so go to the beach, and that kind of stuff. So that's my top priorities at the moment.
yeah, definitely. And what about podcasting? You do a podcast, is that correct, or are you a part of a podcast?
I've been on a couple of podcasts.
Okay, cool.
I would love to do my own podcast. I just don't know how I would fit it in with everything else going on at the moment.
Sure.
But yeah.
Are you a big podcast listener, like a connoisseur, or?
Yeah, love to listen to a good podcast. Audiobook as well. I probably started doing less podcasts, more audiobook recently, but any kind of podcast, love listening to. I really love history podcasts. It's a really good way to kind of hear history. So there's a really good one on the history of the Byzantine Empire. So that's it's super fascinating. The guy who's also the host, he's a British guy, has a very soothing and polite British voice. So it's good to listen to late at night. It's very calming.
That's always joyful.
Yeah, but yeah, all the Stoicism ones, daily Stoic, Stoic meditation, stuff like that. Really love those. Listen to those every morning before I get up and start work and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I obviously have a podcast. I'm helping a few other creators to start a podcast network. So very deep into podcasting. I mean, heavy. So I do a little bit of audiobook in the morning, maybe an hour or two. And then for the rest of the day, I'm pretty much listening to everything across the board. I mean, the Daily Stoic, Daily Dad stuff, of course. But for lately, it's been, I got some catching up to do to you, of course. Bitcoin, just a bunch of different Bitcoin podcasts.
Yeah.
And just trying to catch up into that information. I'm really into what Adam Curry got going on with Podcast 2.0 and the whole Lightning Network on Bitcoin and stuff like that. I was able to get into the Sphinx chat and be able to set that whole thing up. I set up my own node. So basically, I'm on Bitcoin 101, right? I'm trying to get this thing actually.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's what I've been on lately. But yeah, I also have general, what I call general, like when I'm working out and stuff like that. Joe Rogan, Joe Budden. There's a few other ones that I listen to, but I would say 80% of my consumption, at least when I'm doing normal stuff, like about is probably podcasting for sure.
Yeah, I think it's just great to, we're so lucky that we can kind of listen to these interesting things, and while
Absolutely.
we're kind of going away and just doing boring stuff like cleaning the house and stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I work in an operating room, and I stock the operating room and stuff. And yeah, it's basically just one earbud in all day and just kind of zoning out the world and learning a bunch of shit. I mean,
yeah, and it's great because you're learning stuff at the same time. So yeah, it's just like if you had said to me as a kid in school that everyone's going to be obsessed with learning via podcasts, and it's going to be like your core kind of favorite pastime, I would have laughed at you and said you're crazy. But yeah, it's worked, I guess. So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So if anybody listening right now, you want to send them to the social media webs, can they join the social media? It is global, right?
Yes, yeah, it's global. Anyone can join. Feel free.
I'm probably going to check it out.
Yeah, pleem.app, pleme.app. So yeah, happy to have a look around, join up. More voices, the better, I guess.
Yeah.
Welcome.
And the password manager app.
The password manager app is Passvault password manager. It's on the App Store. You can get it. If you want, I can kind of provide a promo code so people can kind of get it free. So I'll shoot that over after this, and everyone, please feel free.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think you serve a huge purpose, Nikolas, in the world. And what I mean by that is that you're motivated, you're a hustler, and you're an entrepreneur, which means you're putting value into the world daily and constantly. But B, I think security is something that most people are just overlooking nowadays. I think people just think they trust these companies way too much, these huge entities that, basically say, we will take care of everything for you. And I think guys such as yourself say, hey, you're basically the frontline workers in that sense. We're trying to fight off these people from stealing your information, your important information that you're willingly just giving away for free. I appreciate you for that, man. And I appreciate you for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm definitely going to be a monkey with a big head after that intro. So thank you so much. And yeah, happy to help. If there's anything I can do to help with this podcasting stuff, network, let me know. I'm more than happy to help. This has been really enjoyed talking to you. It's been a great chat. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everyone listening. And hope for the best. Would love to chat to you again soon.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, Nick. Thanks for joining me for another great conversation with another great guest. If you didn't learn anything from this conversation, then you need to open up your ears more, because we need to be forward thinking. We need to continue to push forward. It's the only way we can distract the monkey mind, the only way we can keep ourselves out of trouble and all the procrastination that happens when we let ourselves get bored. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please rate, share, and subscribe. It's the only way I can continue to have the conversations I love to have, and you get the conversations that you love to listen to. As always, take care. Till next week. Bye.